Hi there, hope you're doing alright. Yeah, so I'll be working on a series on networks and firewalls and just about starting up our home lab. What would you need and what would you do? So before I can start on the series, I think the first thing I need to just explain and go over is what network are we actually going to create? So to start off, I just want to give three main requirements that I think you will need in a lab. So the first requirement is, I think it's very important to have two WAN ports or connections. Almost all medium to large companies use two or more internet connections. So it's very important to start learning how to use them, manage them, and just what you can do with two WAN ports. The second requirement is a management network. I think it's also very important to start learning to have all your important management devices and software on a management network, where it's easier to maintain those devices as well as to maintain security on that network. You can lock it down a lot easier. The third and last requirement is to have some form of a trunk port. So this will be a port where you can use to send a lot of VLANs through, and in there we can create multiple networks. So we can create, example, a network for guests, a network for office, a network for home, so on and so forth. So using those three requirements, that will be pretty much the basis of our lab network. Due to my dial server having two 4-port 1 gig NICs, I'll use 4 of them for the OpnSense for the router. And then the other 4 ports I can use for things like virtual machines or containers. We'll use that to connect those to whichever network we want. So for example, if we create new networks on here, we can then join these specific virtual machines or containers to different networks as we need it. Yeah, so I want to explain how we're going to create two WAN ports or WAN networks in our home lab. So what I'm going to do is, from my main router here, I've created two VLAN networks. So one will be the 172.16 network, and then the other will be a 172.17 network. And then I'm just going to give them a mask of 29, so that's just going to give me 6 hosts on each. Even though we'll probably only use one of each network, just in case for some reason we need more. From there, these two will be in a trunk connection, or in from a trunk port. So the two LANs will go through here into port 24. So they'll go in as tagged. From there, we'll untag them on their specific ports. So in this case, this is VLAN 104. This will be VLAN 105. So then from here, I'll untag it as 104, and this will be untagged as 105. So doing that, we're able to take one cable and then split it into two WAN connections for our home lab to use. The next thing is to create a management network. So one of the ports will be dedicated for the management network. So that's just going to be the 10.0.0.0 range. So from there, it's not a VLAN, it's just a standard network. And then that will go into port 23. Then on the switch itself, I've set the ports 19 to 23 as untagged. And then the default VLAN ID, I've set it to 103. So any data that is pretty much on those ports coming in or out will then be part of the VLAN 103 by default. So I've got this management network going in, and then it's split into here for the uplink, if you want to call it that. Then I've got Proxmox that is on the same network, and then I've got an access point which will have the management network. So whenever I want to work on my home lab, I can just connect to it through Wi-Fi. Then we've got the trunk port. So this will be used for any new network we need to create in the future. So for example, if we want to create a guest network, office network, any sort of other new network, we can use this as a trunk to bring those networks to a new managed switch, where we can then split them off to where they need to be. So I know this is just a quick video of just going through this. I'll leave a link in the description below for a little more detailed write-up, and if you want to download the diagram, the JPEG of it. So in the next video, I'll probably go through the installation of OpnSense as a virtual machine, and then I'll go through how to set up the networks, how to do the multi-WAN, and it's just going to be an ongoing series. So how to do things such as setting up firewall rules, how to block websites on OpnSense, set up VPNs, those sort of things. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.